Tonight, we're discussing Outlander. We're ranking all of the seasons, including season 6 so far. The Batman? Holy hell, was that a swing and a miss? And finally, we'll be inviting two guests on later to discuss cancel culture. What is it? What is its place in society? And when does it go too far? This is Did Y'all See That? Okay. Welcome everybody to Did Y'all See That? I am your host, Ngozi Mai, the Jingle VTuber. Thank you all for tuning in to episode 2 of our podcast. We have a lot to get through tonight, but first, the rundown. This show is split up into two 1-hour parts. The first part is Pop Your Culture, where we discuss various pop culture from the past month or beyond. And then the second part is called Talk Gozy to Me, where we'll invite a special guest or two onto the show for an interview as well as a hot button discussion topic. Now, feel free to comment away throughout the show, but I gotta tell you, I can't promise that I'm gonna be reading the chat too closely the whole time because I got a script that I'm getting through. But I will try. There will be spoilers during the Pop Your Culture part of this show. So if you see this image pop up, then know that we are probably talking about something that you could be spoiled on. So I recommend muting the stream by default if you see that image and shooting a message in the chat asking what we're talking about before unmuting. And then once the image goes away, we're probably safe. At the end of the show, we're going to be going over questions that you can all submit. So type in Q&A in the chat for the link to that, and feel free to submit questions as we go, especially during our hot button discussion issue. I know we are going to have some stuff to say. It is a really juicy topic, so feel free to submit throughout the show. With all that out of the way, let's get started with Pop Your Culture. Ow, you bubs, pop your culture like this. Tell me about it, goes you work that shit. Ow, you bubs, pop your culture like this. Tell me about it, goes you work that shit. Okay, let's get started with the first segment of our show. We've got a couple of different small segments that we go through here. The very first one is going to be Throw It Back. So in this segment, I'm going to talk about a show that's been on the air for a long time, and I'm going to tell you about the seasons, kind of give you an overview of the plot, and then we're going to rank the seasons from best to worst. This month's show is Outlander. We were talking about Outlander, and we're going to go ahead and upfront go spoiler alert. Honey, we are spoiling shit. So if you want to watch Outlander, maybe mute the chat or mute the stream. To be honest, most of what I talk about are just the high level plot points throughout the show. There is a lot of shit that happens in this show that I am not going to even mention tonight. So even if you watch the show tonight, even if you listen to the podcast, you could probably still watch Outlander and still like love it because there's just so much. There's so much that happens. I gloss over a lot. Let's dive right in. Season 1. We open on Claire Randall in 1945, just after she just got done serving as an army nurse for the Second World War in England. She and her husband, Frank Randall, who is a historian, visit Scotland on holiday. She finds herself at these strange stones in Inverness, which is a town in Scotland, and she touches the stones, and she's suddenly transported 200 years in the past. There, she meets Jamie Fraser and the Highlanders, and she's forced to marry Jamie and fit in with 18th century Scotland. She and Jamie unexpectedly fall madly in love with each other. Jamie is a wanted man by the British Army, particularly the sadistic monster Jack Randall, who henceforth I'm going to refer to as Evil Jack because he's a son of a bitch. And funny enough, he is a direct descendant of her present-day husband, Frank Randall, and it's actually played by the same actor, so they looked identical. Evil Jack becomes obsessed with Claire and Jamie, and he actually captures Claire, which prompts Jamie to offer himself in exchange for Claire's freedom. After Jamie does that, he is brutally assaulted physically, mentally, and sexually by Evil Jack for days until Claire and the Highlanders arrive to save him, and they presumably kill Evil Jack by having him trampled by sheep. LOL. Jamie is severely traumatized by this, but after Claire warns him that the impending Battle of Culloden, which is a historical battle that actually happened, is going to mark the end of the Highlanders, Jamie vows to somehow stop the battle and save his kinsmen. And that's kind of where season one ends. Season one was really fucking good. Like all of the shit I just told you was like maybe some details sprinkled in episodes, but oh my god, it's like 14 episodes. It's gonna blow your mind how much shit happens in this one season. This season like really like put me onto this show. The only reason I watched this show back in 2022, the first season, and I was hooked. But sadly, the second season, which we'll get to in a minute, like had kind of a rocky start, and it kind of made me fall off the show. But this was so damn good. Oh my god, you fall in love with Claire. She's a great protagonist. She's very strong-willed and independent and smart as hell. And her time as a nurse in the army makes it so that she has like healing abilities. So she's kind of takes on a role as a healer in Scotland back then, like teaching them about like really simple shit like germs and shit, because it's the 1700s. I don't know about germs. Like, what the hell are germs? So you also fall in love with Jamie, who is brave and young and so headfast and headstrong, and he is head over heels in love with Claire. It is so fucking sweet. Something else that really pulled me into this show was the fact that, so it's a Showtime show, and if you guys know, Showtime and HBO shows are like all full of sex. This show's no different. The difference with this show is that like every single sex scene, every single consensual sex scene is designed for women to enjoy them. Like this show is written off of a book series by Diana Gabaldon, and she's a woman that writes sex scenes for women, and it fucking shows. So this is a very solid number one. Like this is the jumpstart into the series. This will get you hooked, guarantee it. And I didn't even really spoil a thing. Let's move on to season 2. Season 2. Claire and Jamie arrive in Paris to begin a secret campaign to prevent the Battle of Culloden from happening by sabotaging the Bonnie Prince Charles's desperate attempts to raise funds for the war so his father can reclaim the English throne. We find out that Claire is pregnant, which is a happy occasion for both Claire and Jamie. Jamie is still deeply traumatized by his time with Evil Jack, but he feels comforted knowing that Evil Jack is dead. Or is he? Dun, dun, dun. We actually find out that Evil Jack indeed survived, and he's in Paris too for some reason, and he's visiting his dying brother in Paris. That's the reason why he's in Paris, which is still kind of a coincidence, but whatevs. So when Jamie finds this out, he vows to kill Evil Jack the next time he sees them. But Claire begs him, please, Jamie, don't kill him. He needs to survive at least up until the Battle of Culloden so that Frank's direct ancestor can be born, right? So Jamie really tries his hardest to not fucking murder this guy. But he actually catches Evil Jack sexually assaulting James Young Ward, who's a little boy. His name is Fergus, and Jamie took him on as his ward. And fucking Evil Jack is a goddamn monster, and he was sexually assaulting him. So Jamie was just like, okay, dude, you're gonna die now. So Jamie challenges Jack to a duel. And when Claire finds out, she tries to stop them and she miscarries. She miscarries their child. Jamie actually doesn't end up killing Evil Jack in that duel, but he does shoot him in the dick, which I thought was hilarious. Wrought with grief, Jamie and Claire return to Scotland, having failed to prevent the Battle of Culloden from happening because Bonnie Prince Charles ended up making the money instead. So they know that it's full steam ahead. It's going to happen, and they find out Claire's pregnant again. So Jamie forces Claire to go back through the stones to safety, because if she stays in the present, if she stays in the past and the Battle of Culloden happens, she's probably going to be killed, and her baby too. So he forces her to go through the stones, and it's a really heartfelt scene, them saying goodbye to each other because she knows that she needs to go, but she doesn't want to because she loves him so much. But she goes through the stones and she returns to the present. When she returns to the present, she's been missing for 2 years. She just disappeared, remember, right? And she's been gone for 2 whole years. And now she comes back and she's wearing these strange clothes from the past, and she's extremely pregnant. So Frank, her present day husband, knowing that it's another man's child, agrees to take her and move them both back to America to settle, loving the child as his own. Claire is unbelievably heartbroken because she feels that she left the love of her life to die. And she's kind of consigned to that fact, and she feels like her mission in life now is to just raise the child, their baby. This was a rocky start. I'm not gonna lie. It was a little bit boring when they first got to Paris, and that's actually why I originally fell off. But the show actually really, this season really picks up a few episodes in, and it ends up being so fucking good. Seeing Jamie deal with the trauma that he experienced with Evil Jack from the last season, it was really big for his own character development. It really put a lot of layers and maturity on him as a character. Also, the couple experiencing that tragedy of losing a child really solidified their relationship. You know, it felt like in season one, it was very cute, their relationship, where they were just like, oh, I love you, oh, I love you, oh, I love you, we're in love, oh, blah, 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 like that. It was very honeymoony. But this them sharing this tragedy in season two really brought depth to their relationship, and it kind of, it just solidified it, and it was really, really cool to see that, because honestly, from this moment on, you really kind of never doubt their love, as if you doubted it before. And I honestly cried my fucking eyes out. Oh my God. In the scene where Jamie and Claire are saying goodbye to each other, it's a long scene. It's like something like 7 or 8 minutes long. And they don't want to leave each other, and they're just telling each other, and they're just like holding each other and kissing each other and knowing that this is goodbye, because Jamie thinks he's gonna die and Claire thinks he's gonna die, and they're like, we're never gonna see each other again. And it was, oh my God, they acted the fuck out of that scene. They acted the fuck out of that scene. This season would very nearly be number 2 on my list if it was not for a later season. This season was so strong, but there is another season later that is stronger, and that's why this is number 3 on my list. Season 3, we begin the season following Claire in the 20 years after she came back to her present. She has her baby shortly after coming back, and she names the baby Brianna, or Bree, after Jamie's father, Brian, but Frank doesn't know that. She tries to live her life as a housewife, but quickly went, fuck that, and then went to med school to become a surgeon instead, which, badass Claire, love her. She and Frank are intensely unhappy in their marriage, despite really trying to be married and trying to be parents to Bree. But Frank, for one, is, like I've mentioned, he's played by the same actor as Evil Jack. So he unintentionally repulses her every time he tries to touch her. Like she just cannot unsee Evil Jack's face in him, because they look the fucking same. So that's part of it. She doesn't even want to touch him. And number 2, she's very obviously in love with someone else. Like, you know, if you're in a relationship and you know that other person's heart is not in it, you know. And as a result, Frank is super unhappy, and he's really lonely. And he actually asks her for divorce eventually. 20 years later, he asks her for divorce. Unfortunately, right after he did that, he was killed in a car accident. Really tragic. Bree is grown now. She's a grown woman now. She's in college going to college for history, because she really respects her father. Frank is the only father she ever knew. So she loves her father so dearly, and she is devastated when Frank is killed in a car accident. Her being a historian, she finds out that her parents were lying to her whole life about Claire going back in the past for 2 years, or in his eyes, disappearing for 2 years. So when she finds that out and she realizes Frank wasn't even her father, she digs deeper and she employs the help of a man named Roger. And Roger was a little boy living in this living with this minister that took Claire in when she first came back to the present. So basically, like, Claire came back to the present, and this minister took her in to like let her live there until Frank got there. So that's how Roger is involved in this. Roger's now grown too. So they find out that Jamie survived. Jamie didn't die in the Battle of Culloden. And they found like documents saying like where he was. And when they tell Claire about that, Claire decides, yeah, fuck the present, I'm going back to my man. And she goes back to the past to go try to find Jamie. So let's put a pause in that story for now. Let's flash back to the Battle of Culloden, which failed, you know, as Claire said it would. Jamie accepted that he was going to die because the love of his life is gone. So he's like, I don't fucking care about life anymore. So he went to the battle fully expecting to die, and he killed Evil Jack. That was so satisfying to see Evil Jack just get stabbed in the fucking, like, the gut. I thought I already had enough satisfaction seeing him get shot in the dick, but getting him stabbed, that was just, oh my God, that was such sweet release. After the battle, Jamie is badly wounded. He and the other Highlanders that fought in the Battle of Culloden are branded as traitors to the crown. So they are all transported to a prison called Ardsmuir. And in that prison, Jamie he kind of gets a lot of respect from the prisoners. You know, they see him as a Makdu, which is kind of like royalty. Like they kind of just dub him their leader. And he actually also gets very close to the warden of the prison, who was a redcoat officer named John Gray that he actually met much earlier in the series. But that's a detail I'm going to leave out so you guys can watch the show. You guys like that one. So because he befriended John Gray had connections with some wealthy benefactors, and he actually got Jamie out of prison, and he got him a position in a fancy mansion as a groom, which is kind of a valet. Like, it's just a guy that serves the master of the house. He's manipulated or more coerced into conceiving a son with the daughter of the house. Pretty much he said, if you don't fuck me, I'm going to get you fired. And he's just like, well, best we get fucking. So they conceive a son, and the son's name is Willie, but the son can never know that Jamie is his real father. And Jamie actually got to raise the son a little bit for the first 6 years of his life, but they decided that Jamie needed to leave at that point, because eventually the son was going to start looking in the mirror and then looking at Jamie and going, something ain't right here. So they decided that Jamie should leave. So Jamie is eventually pardoned totally, and he finds work as a printer in Edinburgh. One day he's working in his shop, and a familiar face appears in his shop. And he and Claire are finally reunited after 20 years. Jamie didn't think he'd ever see her again. I cried. He actually fainted. He fainted at the sight of her. It was adorable. Excuse me. So that's actually all of what I just said happened in the first fucking 7 episodes of the fucking season. There was another 7 episodes. There was an entire arc. This is when it went off the rails. This is why this season kind of gets a little bit lower on the list, because it was great up to that point. But then after this, there's a whole arc where Jamie's son, Ian, gets kidnapped by pirates, and Jamie and Claire have to cross the ocean to Jamaica to go get Ian back and buy him back from slavery. And then Claire got kidnapped at some point by a different ship, and then she jumps overboard in the middle of the ocean and floats to a random island and almost dies from exposure. And then Jamie's ship just happened to land on that island, and save her. And then after they save young Ian, their ship gets into a storm, and Jamie and Claire get jettisoned off overboard again in the middle of the ocean in the middle of a storm, but they survive somehow and wash up on the shores of North Carolina. And then they were just like, shit, I guess we live in North Carolina now. It was just weird. It was a weird choice. It went off the rails at the second half of that season. So that's why I love Jamie's story. I think Claire's story was actually a little bit boring in this season, but I think her story, really the purpose of it was to introduce Bree and Roger, because they actually become regular characters later in the series. So I think that was really the point of Claire's story. Jamie's story was so good. Jamie's story was so fucking good. Oh my God. It was so nice to see Jack Randall get fucking killed. But that whole pirate arc was ridiculous. Oh my God. So because of that, the whole latter half of the season was just laughably bad. I had to put the season at number 5. Oh God, it just went off the rails. But moving on to season 4. We open on Claire and Jamie now settling in the new world, as Jamie is granted 10,000 acres of land in North Carolina, and it's called Fraser's Ridge. So they're in America now. They help a man named Stephen Bonnet escape execution, only for that man to betray and rob them of everything that they have, including Claire's wedding ring. Keep that in mind. In the present, Bree and Roger begin to date, but Roger totally freaks Bree out because he asked her to marry him after dating for 2 months, because they wanted to fuck. And he said, I can't have sex until we get married. So can you marry me? And Bree was like, no. So they broke up. Roger, being a historian himself, finds out that Claire and Jamie died in a fire only a couple of years after Claire returned to him. So he finds out that he wanted to tell Bree about this, but he actually found out she already knew. And she already went through the stones to the past to try to warn her mother. So Roger has the ability to go through the stones as well. I'm not going to tell you why. Go ahead and watch the show so you can find out why. So he follows her through the stones. Bree is able to make it to the New World pretty quickly because remember the stones are in Scotland, so when they go through the stones, they're in Scotland, so they have to find a way to get to the Americas from then in 1769. Like it's not easy, but Bree actually makes it over there pretty quickly because she's able to find her Jamie's sister and brother-in-law. And tell them, hey, I'm your niece, and then they give her a bunch of money, so she's able to get over pretty safely. Roger, however, didn't think things through and went to the pass with no money, so he had to sell himself into indentured servitude to none other than Stephen fucking Bonnet, because Stephen Bonnet is a pirate and owns a ship, so he's under Stephen Bonnet's employ. He finds out that Bonnet is a total monster. A total fucking monster. Apparently, there was one person on the ship that had the pox, and he threw her overboard. Then he decided if anybody on this ship has so much of a fucking sniffle, they are getting thrown overboard. And he just starts throwing passengers overboard. And Roger finds like a young woman and a small child who happens to have the same last name as him. They're from the same clan. So he's just like, he tries to save her and hide her under the ship, and it gets him in trouble with Stephen Bonnet. So he's got bad blood with Stephen Bonnet. When they land, Roger and Bree reunite, and they actually marry handfast. And handfast is kind of a temporary marriage. You're legally married in the eyes of God for a year, but you have that year in order to get in front of a priest and make it official. And they finally fuck. They sleep together for the first time because now they're married. Right after that happens, though, Bree and Roger get into a huge fight because Roger's just like, okay, Bree, let's go the fuck back to the present. The past is dangerous. We shouldn't be here. And Bree's just like, no, I have to warn my mom. She's gonna die. And then they get into a big fight and they separate. So after that happens, Bree goes into a bar and she actually finds Stephen Bonnet playing around with her mother's wedding ring. Remember, he stole it from her. She tries to buy it back from him, but he's a son of a bitch, and he actually brutally rapes her and gives her the ring as quote-unquote payment. It's a really fucked up scene. She finally, after this happens the next day, really, really fucked up thing happens. She does finally run into Jamie, and she tells him who he is, and that moment made me cry. It was just so beautiful. So beautiful because Jamie's sitting here thinking, I'm never going to see my daughter. Like, I can only rely on what Claire tells me. And he saw his daughter for the first time. He saw his face and his daughter's face. And it was so beautiful. And they reunite with Claire, too. It's a really touching moment. Roger tries to find Bree at the same time, like pretty much like that next morning. But Stephen Bonnet forces him back on the ship to finish his servitude. So it's like a couple of more months later before Roger can he has to sail all the way up to Pennsylvania and then find his way all the way back down to North Carolina. Like, it takes a couple more months. Unfortunately, due to a misunderstanding, when Roger finally makes it to Fraser's Ridge, Jamie mistakenly thinks that Roger is the one that raped Bree. And he beats the shit out of Roger and has him sold into slavery with the Mohawk Native Americans. When Bree finally tells Jamie of his mistake, Jamie and Claire and Jamie's nephew Ian the one that got kidnapped by pirates, travel all the way up to upstate New York to get Roger back. Meanwhile, Bree is pregnant. And she does not know if the father is Bonnet's or Rogers, and she kind of thinks it might be Bonnet's because Roger pulled out, Bonnet didn't. So she visits Bonnet in prison, he's imprisoned again because he's about to get executed again because he's a fucking bastard. And she tells him off, but she also informs him of his child, kind of like to spite him a little bit. Like, just, I guess, does it bring you comfort knowing that there is something that's going to be in the world after you're gone? That was kind of her her philosophy for that. Ian, up in New York, trades himself to the Mohawk in Roger's place. And then Roger is finally able to be reunited with Bree. He vows to love that boy, Jimmy, that baby boy, as his own, whether it's his or not. This season was so good. This season was so fucking good. This is the reason why season 2 is not number 2 on this list, because this season is number 2. I was engaged every second of this season. Every second of the season. The only reason why it's not number 1 is because season 1 is number 1. So this is the season to watch. This is the season, like, watch this show so that you can get to the season. Okay. Season 5. We open on Bree. By the way, there's 6 seasons, and season 6 is like halfway done right now. Okay. Season 5. We open on Bree and Roger's wedding. So they're finally married for real, for real. a rebel group called the Regulators, which is a group of Scottish settlers in the New World, begins rebelling against the Redcoat occupation due to unfair taxes. Jamie is tasked by the governor, the Redcoat governor, with amassing a militia amongst Fraser's Ridge to quell the rebellion. Claire tells Jamie about the impending Revolutionary War that's about to happen, and he warns them that they maybe don't want to be on Britain's side when that happens. So, keeping that in mind, Jamie helps the Redcoats for the time being, but in the back of his mind, he's like, we're not going to be on their side much longer. So, Roger and Bree think that they are unable to go through the stones that go back to the present because Jimmy's now here. They're afraid that Jimmy the baby won't be able to go through the stones. So like if they try to, maybe Jimmy just gets stayed left behind on the ground or something. So they would just decide, okay, we just live here now. The group finds out that Bonnet is still alive. He evaded execution yet again, and they decide, yeah, we need to kill this motherfucker. So Bonnet, now exonerated, has begun amassing influence in North Carolina, and he intends to claim Jimmy as his own son because Jamie's aunt Jocasta, who owns this huge plantation and all this wealth, has signed all of her wealth in her will and made Jimmy the heir. So now Bonnet's like, oh, I want that shit, so I'm going to make him my son. So the group are like, no, that's not happening. So they're finally, the whole arc happens. I won't spoil it, but they are able to finally kick his fucking ass and doom him to be executed via drowning, which is actually his greatest fear. So that was great poetic justice. However, Bree shoots the fucker in the head anyway. So that's pretty poggers. By the end of the season, Jamie's militia has successfully quelled the Regulators at the cost of the life of Jamie's godfather and best friend. I won't say who that is because I think that'd be something that you guys should watch. Jamie declares his loyalty to the crown as over. He has no more loyalty to the crown. He is a free man living in a free nation. After the battle, Claire is, okay, this is the reason why because this season was actually pretty good, but this little thing I'm going to tell you right now is what put this season so fucking low on this list for me. After the battle happens, this is the last episode of the season, Claire is suddenly kidnapped by a band of men because she had been publishing articles under a pseudonym teaching women how to prevent pregnancy, among other things too. Like, it wasn't just that, like, it was also like how to keep your hands clean, wash your hands, there's germs, but it was also telling women about their cycles and how they can prevent pregnancy. And the men of the area did not take kindly to that and decided the way to punish her was to brutally beat and gang rape her, which I will get to this in a minute. I have huge problems with how this show treats rape. We will talk about it in a minute. But basically, the men of Fraser's Ridge all fucking killed every one of those guys, which was actually a badass fucking scene. They were all like suiting up and shit, getting all badass. We're like, we're gonna fucking kill them. And they killed every last one of them, which was awesome. But this whole ordeal left Claire intensely traumatized, which of course it fucking would. The season was great, honestly. Like, seeing Bree and Roger adjust as new parents in the 18th century was really cool as a development in their own arcs. Like, they're young people coming to the past and trying to like survive back here and not knowing, I guess, the rules, you know? Like, there's actually a point, like, you remember that young mother that Roger tried to save on the ship? He actually comes across her again during that battle with the Regulators because that young mother's husband is one of the Regulators. So he tried to warn her, be like, hey, this battle is not going to go in your favor. You guys need to get out of here. And he got too familiar with her because he wasn't familiar with the rules of the time. So he gave her a hug. Her husband saw him hug her, got pissed, and then dressed him up like a Regulator. And then he actually got hanged. The Redcoats hung him as an example, thinking he was one of the Regulators. But before he died, they were like Bree and Claire and Jamie were able to cut him down in time. But it left him traumatized as fuck because he almost died. He had a near-death experience. And that was a really, really like intense couple of episodes surrounding Roger and his own growth and really adjusting to the time. The emotional beats were really hit here. But that last episode killed it for me. Small tangent. This show, and this is a content warning, guys. I love this show. My biggest beef with this show is that it is far too liberal with its use of rape, and to the point where, like, every time, like, I get it. It's a product of its time, as in like the 18th century was not a good place for women to be in. It happened. I know that. I acknowledge that, but I think that this show uses it as a plot device for the wrong reasons. Like, I understand that they had Bree sexually assaulted. I know why they did that. They did that to start the whole drama with who's the baby's father. I get it. That's for the narrative, right? This happening to Claire didn't need to fucking happen. This wasn't even the first time that character's been raped in this fucking show. Like, so why the fuck do this to leave her traumatized? She's already traumatized. Shit. Like, there's just no reason. I was so fucking mad. Like, why the fuck? Like, it just, this whole season was great up until that point. It was like the last, 30 minutes of the last episode. I don't fucking know. It was very lazy. I agree. It's very lazy. So anyway, that's my tangent. This is number 4 on the list. It's not quite the worst, but god damn it, that episode really fucking ruined it. Finally, season 6 so far. So we open on Claire still being deeply traumatized, and she's now become addicted to ether because it's the only way for her to calm down when something triggers her, right? So the Revolutionary War is now growing ever closer. The Boston Tea Party has happened. There are new arrivals that have come to settle on Fraser's Ridge, and they're all Protestants, and they want to make more Protestants. They're trying to proselytize everybody and make more Protestants. Jamie's like, keep that shit to yourselves. Jamie's not with it. Jamie's like, you know what? Protestants, you do you. Us Catholics are going to do us. Let's just be on the ridge together. Let's fucking keep religion out of it. But the Protestants are like, no, we need more religion. So there's like a little bit of tension. There's a little bit of tension there, especially because a lot of the existing citizens are being converted. So we're all like, oh shit, this is good. We're going to be this now. They're going to be this kind of community now. And with Protestants and being very pious and whatnot, rumors start to circulate that Claire is a witch, because of her expertise in surgery and medicine. We remember, Claire's a surgeon, and she has knowledge about things like how to make, she figured penicillin had not been invented yet by this time, so she decided to invent it. She invented penicillin. She invented ether to use as anesthesia. Excuse me, anesthesia. There we go. Sorry, that's the word. Anesthesia. But the people are seeing this as witchcraft because they don't understand it. I think that's kind of the theme of this season is just rumors, the power of mob mentality and rumors. After a dysentery epidemic breaks out, Claire falls deathly ill, though actually it was under suspicious circumstances because she did not have dysentery. She had a different ailment. So there's like some foul play suspected here by a young girl named Malva. Malva is the daughter of that main guy that's a Protestant trying to convert everybody Protestant. And Claire takes her on as an apprentice to be an assistant for her medicine to do the anesthesia and stuff. I keep wanting to call it anesthesis. That's not the word. So Malva gets real creepy. I got creepy ass vibes from this girl from the fucking first day. From like the moment she fucking started, like opened her damn mouth. I'm like, this bitch is gonna do some crazy shit later. And she did. While Claire was ill. She decided to like push up on Jamie and make it seem like, oh, Jamie's trying to like get at her. Not true. Turns out she's fucking all kinds of dudes. She was getting around. She was fucking all kinds of dudes and she got pregnant, and then she tried to say, oh, it's Jamie's baby. And like, it like wasn't, but it didn't matter that it wasn't. It didn't matter that Claire believed Jamie because the rumors got started and everybody else believed it. And then Malva up and mysteriously gets murdered. She got her throat slit and the baby died too. And now all the settlers think it was Claire, but it wasn't. And that is where we left off. That was the last episode we saw. So honestly, this season, disappointing so far because everything I just told you was in 7 episodes. You remember earlier on in one of the earlier seasons, I told you all kinds of shit that happened, and then I told you it was 7 episodes. That was the pacing of this season is just so off compared to the rest of this show. And all of the other seasons, like it was just, they crammed so much shit, so much plot, so much narrative into 14 episodes, whereas now we're halfway through on this one and barely anything's happened. So I'm gonna put this one as a solid number 6. It's still too soon to tell for sure, because like I said, it's only halfway done, but it's not looking good, folks. So that is my ranking. These are my rankings of all the seasons. At the very least, you should at least watch the first 5 seasons, and I will let you know. I will follow up on season 6, but this is a great show, especially the first few seasons. They're so good, and I really recommend watching it. And that is Throw It Back, y'all. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next segment of Pop Your Culture, Gozy Jams. So I am starting a new thing where I am going to curate a small playlist every month from the songs that kind of just sit into my skull. They're just earworms that just I could not get out of my head for the month of April. So this month's Gozy Jams, by the way, type in exclamation point Gozy Jams in the chat for the link to this playlist if you would like to listen to them. Sit Pissers. This is like a joke song from Lord Athelstan that I've been like fucking obsessed with all fucking month. Like, holy shit, I keep listening to the song on repeat. It's like objectively a good song, plus it's super fucking funny. Then Rakuen no Kimi by Osterreich is another song. This is an anime, I think, closing or anime opening from Tokyo Ghoul, and I'm really obsessed with it. And spoiler alert, this was actually going to be my cover in June, so I'm gonna release a cover of this song in June. Odd Taxi, from this is actually the opening song from the anime Odd Taxi. This is a really good like kind of lo-fi kind of funky R&B hip-hoppy type of song. And then I'm Not a Killer from Evil Dead the Musical. This actually came up in Stream earlier. I love that show too. It's so good. And this came up, we were talking about Evil Dead the Musical in a stream a couple of weeks ago, and then it just stuck in my head. And then finally, a little bit of self-plug, again by Ngozi Mai. My latest cover has also been on repeat for me, so type in exclamation point Gozy Jams for this link, and that is Gozy Jams. All right, let's move on to our next segment of Pop Your Culture. We need to talk. In this segment, we will cover a movie or show that was a hard swing and a miss. And this month's culprit is The Batman. Oh, buckle up, folks. Good thing we still have spoiler alert here because, guys, it's gonna be, spoiler alert, we're going to be spoiling the fuck out of this, so just heads up if you haven't seen the movie. This is a spoiler-full review for this movie. Let's get right into it. Let's start with the good. If we're going to have kind of a negative-ish review, let's start with the good first. So the opening scene was actually a very good fucking start. I was very impressed with how they executed the opening scene. Basically, it opens up on Gotham, aerial views of Gotham, and we're zooming in on different crimes that are occurring, right? And all the while, Bruce Wayne, aka Batman, is narrating. He's doing a monologue, and honestly, I don't even remember the damn words in the monologue. It was just something dark and gloomy. Who the fuck cares? The point is, the thing they're trying to get across is Batman is this known force of darkness that is coming for people that do bad things, and each of these crimes that are about to happen, each of the criminals look up into the sky and they see the bat signal. This guy specifically looks up and sees it, and then he very slowly looks down and stares into a dark shadow, expecting to see Batman. And the acting was so well done. You don't even see this guy's face. He's wearing a mask, but he sells the shit out of it that he is scared for his fucking life right now. I thought the opening scene was extremely well done. And it wasn't even because of like the lead characters. It's because the background characters, they just really sold the fuck out of this. Jeffrey Wright's Gordon. I thought that Jeffrey Wright was one of the few bright stars of this movie. He was really committed to this role. He's one of the few roles in the movie that I felt actually had a real arc, some real like growth from the start. At the beginning, we see him as kind of like an idealistic cop. He's a cop that really trusts Batman's ability to be a detective. He brings him in on crime scenes. He really trusts his colleagues, like his other fellow cops, like that we're all trying to do the right thing. But as this conspiracy unfolds and he starts revealing that his colleagues are actually dirty, they're all dirty cops and dirty politicians and dirty public figures, his demeanor really starts to change throughout the film. He starts becoming more desperate. He doesn't trust anybody now. He only trusts Batman. He's just trying to be a good cop, but he's trying to uncover this conspiracy for the safety of the people, and he doesn't know who to trust anymore. And I really, really liked his portrayal of this. This was one of the few shining stars of the film. Zoe Kravitz is Selena Kyle. Honestly, cards on the table, this character in the film was extremely poorly written. But Zoe Kravitz really made up for a lot of that slack. And there was a lot of slack, ladies and gents. Like, my God, The biggest thing about her, if you've ever seen, folks, if you've ever seen other portrayals of Catwoman, you'll know that she's a very sexualized character. It's like a part of being Catwoman to be sexy, like, and honestly, overly sexy. Like, think of the other people that have portrayed her: Michelle Pfeiffer, Anne Hathaway, Halle Berry, even her portrayal in the Arkham video games. Like, she's always very over, oh, Batman, like very cartoony, sexualized. Zoe Kravitz's sexiness in this is so natural. It's so natural coming from her. She's just naturally sexy, you know? She really like brought a new, I guess, vibe for Catwoman that we really haven't seen before. It was very effortless coming from her. And she really sold this love interest with Batman, I think, a lot more than Robert Pattinson did. I think that between their dynamic, I think she gave more. I don't think he gave enough. And quite frankly, her performance is the only reason why this character specifically isn't in the bad section that's going to come next, because they really fucked this character. Like, they pretty much reduced Selena Kyle as a bastard daughter of a mob boss that has daddy issues. Like, that's pretty much how that's what they made the character into. And I think Zoe Kravitz did a really good job of uplifting that more, to give that a little bit more depth, because the writing did not do her any favors. So kudos to Zoe Kravitz. And then finally, Colin Farrell's Penguin. He was an unexpected shining star of the film too. I really wish he was in it more. He was kind of a bit character. We only saw him a handful of times. You honestly forget that that's Colin Farrell. That's like some Irish dude. Like, you forget it's him. He really committed to this character. And it was a really smart move on his part, and the direction. I have a lot of negative shit to say about the direction in this movie, but the direction for him was a very solid move, because they very deliberately chose not to go the cartoony route like they did the last time we saw the Penguin on the silver screen was with Danny DeVito's Penguin in the 1999 Batman. And he was a cartoon. They actually like made him like a human guy that looked like a penguin. And, that worked for it, because that's the vibe they were going for. But kind of grounding the character more into a real guy, like, really was an unexpected change, and it worked, and he killed it. I really, really just wish that they would have had him in the movie more. Let's move on to the bad guys. Buckle up. The Riddler. Oh, where to begin? For one, they were trying way too hard to make this villain like ultra edgy with the violence. Like, I get it. That's where they were going for the darker route here. I fucking get it. But I mean, they were trying way fucking too hard with this shit, making him like super just edgy. Like, that's like a note for the whole film. It's just like, it felt like, I'm really convinced that Matt Reeves, the director of this film, every time any of the actors, because these are great actors, I know that these are great actors, I'm pretty sure that they approached it in the way that they thought was right. But Matt Reeves, every time they would cut the scene, Matt would be like, we needed to be more edgy, darker, gloomier, more brooding, edgier, like every time, to the point where it just felt so stilted. It felt so fucking stilted and forced. It just totally took me out of the film. Not to mention, the whole film, we're meant to see Riddler's mission, as uncovering lies made by the corrupt city politicians and public figures and the police, which I can buy that. That is not new to Gotham. Anybody that's seen any Batman comic book or animated film or animated show, like, corruption is there. Corruption is a part. It's built into the blood of Gotham. Gotham is a corrupt ass fucking city. So I buy that. I buy that goal of uncovering that, right? Excuse me, but I think what the film failed to do was really establish these characters that they were killing off, that the Riddler was murdering, before murdering them. Because as a result, they would murder some city council member, and they would murder the district attorney, and then they would murder the police commissioner, and we didn't fucking care. Because we don't know who the fuck they are. The police commissioner actually did appear on screen in one scene, and we didn't even know he was the police commissioner until, like, at the end of the scene, where they said, "Okay, commissioner," like it seemed like they just threw that in there just so that the audience can know that that's the commissioner, right? So as a result, like, we're sitting here like they're trying to make it feel so I don't know, so bad of a plot, but it just didn't feel that bad. It just felt like normal murder, I guess. I don't know. They didn't make me care about those characters, and they didn't, and it made it so that we didn't really understand what the Riddler's end game was. Not to mention, there's a whole like the whole last hour of this film totally goes left. We're gonna get to that a little bit later, and that's what really muddies up the Riddler's like motive here, because it's really unclear. I would buy that the Riddler just wanted justice and wanted to just uncover the conspiracies because the public needed to know. I did not get that from him. I did not get that as his goal, as his motivation. Like it just did. Like it was a really poorly thought out arc for this villain. You know, what makes a good, compelling villain, in my opinion, is a villain that the audience can understand. You may not agree with the villain's methods. You may not agree with the villain's goals, his end game, but you understand them. You know, you understand where he's coming from, that what I'm gendering, but what that villain desires, you understand why they desire it. That was never established for this character. That was never established. His entire plot, I guess, happened. Like I guess a conspiracy happened in Gotham, and I guess he had some vague connection with it because Bruce Wayne's father had some public initiative that didn't benefit him as a child because he was an orphan, and also Bruce Wayne's father indirectly got a reporter killed because that reporter reported something on Bruce Wayne's father's initiative. It was just like it was a mess. It was just a mess. It was a fucking mess. Don't even get me started on after he gets caught. The Riddler gets caught and jailed 2 hours into this movie. This movie's 3 hours long. So the entire last hour of the movie, he's in jail. He's already out of the movie. And not only that, we find out when he gets caught, he's a 4chan incel. He's a 4chan incel with the plan to blow up 7 dams in the city, which, why the fuck does Gotham have 7 dams in the city preventing water from flooding the city? Why would you build a city there? Like, why would you do that? I don't know. It makes no sense. The whole motive is flimsy at best and murky as to why he's doing this. You know, it's just, it feels like the Riddler, it feels like Matt Reeves wrote this with the ideas, I want to make a Batman movie. Okay. What's a Batman villain that hasn't really gotten a lot of love lately? Oh, the Riddler. I want to make a Batman movie with the Riddler in it. And then he wrote a story around that. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. The Riddler was just thrown in. He was just thrown in. And I think that it was just a huge missed opportunity. All right, let's move on from the Riddler. Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne. Guys, Robert Pattinson is an amazing actor. I have seen him do some fucking magic on screen. And I am convinced that his lacking performance in this film is entirely due to Matt Reeves' direction. You know, it's overly emo and brooding and moody to the point where I like actively dreaded seeing him. Anytime his face would come on screen, I would like roll my eyes because like I wanted to see any other character but him. And that's fucked up because the movie's called Batman. The movie's called, like, that should not be the case, guys. If y'all are familiar with Batman in the comics, him being dark and brooding is not new. That is definitely on brand for Batman. There's definitely a place for that. But here's the thing. Whenever like Batman and Bruce in the comics and in the animated films would have darkness to him, a very dark arc, it's because something informed that, you know? Like whether it's being betrayed by Ra's al Ghul or mourning the murder of Jason Todd after Jason Todd was brutally murdered by the Joker, you know? There's something that happened to him that informs that demeanor for him. And in this film, that's not established at all. The only thing we get is, okay, his parents were killed when he was a kid. And that's for every Batman. Every Batman has that origin story. It doesn't feel earned. It doesn't feel like this dark and brooding like exterior that he's exuding here. It doesn't feel earned at all. And it's certainly not established in the film. So I really can tell that Pattinson really tried his best here. Like I said, I'm pretty sure that the reason why this came off so one-dimensional is because Matt Reeves wanted it to be that way. I'm pretty fucking sure. He did a great job as Batman when he was in his Batman scenes, because like, how the fuck do you fuck up Batman? You can't. It's deep voice, check. Kick ass, check. excuse me, be emotionless, check. You can't fuck up Batman, but it was his Bruce. It was his Bruce that really killed the character for me because, quite frankly, Bruce is. There's a place for a dark and brooding Bruce, not the way he did it. Not the way he did it. And honestly, the character even has a come to Jesus moment where he does turn around. He stops looking so gloomy, having such a gloomy outlook on life. The sad part, it came in way too fucking late in the movie. It should have happened way fucking sooner, and it happened in the third hour. And by that point, we were already like begging for the movie to be done. So we'll get back to that. But that's Bruce. It was such a shame because Robert Pattinson's a great actor. The entire last hour of the film, ooh, money. As I mentioned, this movie is 3 fucking hours long. And the entire last hour of the movie was entirely unnecessary. The movie could have stopped at hour 2 and it would have been a complete movie. You know, at the start of the final hour, Riddler is caught. He's in jail. The big conspiracy mystery is solved. Even the big bad that was at the center of that mystery is dead. So that's closure. We got closure on that. Selena Kyle gets closure on her daddy issues. All the dirty cops are arrested. All is well. They could have stopped. They could have stopped there, but no, they decided we need another layer to this. So now the Riddler has one more dumbass card up his sleeve after he gets caught for some reason. His whole plot was seemingly around exposing this conspiracy, which he did, but now he suddenly decides to destroy the city by blowing up all the dams in Gotham and flooding Gotham and killing as many as he can. And then once everybody that survives the initial flooding makes it to like the Gotham Square Garden, which, hello, that's hilarious. Gotham Square Garden, which is a big basketball arena. They all flock there. He's got his incel army because he's an incel social media influencer, guys. Did you know? He gets his incel army to like infiltrate the Gotham Square Garden and like with the desire to gun everybody down, to just kill everybody. Like, what? Like his whole thing was to like expose that conspiracy, and now he just wants to kill everybody. That doesn't make any sense. Like, why? I don't know, man. I don't know if there was like symbolism, like hidden symbolism that I just didn't get by this point. I don't fucking know, because by this point in the movie, I was begging for it to be done. I was looking at my watch. I was actively fighting the fucking urge to get up and walk out of the fucking theater because I was so fucking. And that whole arc was an hour. That whole arc was an hour. So they could have cut this out. If they would have cut this fucking hour out of the movie, I would have given this movie a 6 out of 10. This movie, this last hour fucked it for me. We'll get to my verdict a little bit later. Okay, I'll move on. All right. What could have been? Let's be a little positive here. The cinematography was intensely beautiful. It was so beautiful, guys. You could tell that it was someone's job, someone very highly paid job, to absolutely nail the principal photography and the cinematography of this film, because visually it looked beautiful. It was extremely well thought out. Every single shot visually was extremely well thought out, you know? The sad thing is that I think they really could have used that effort into making maybe the cinematography uplift the story, because the story was so weak. The story and the characters and the plot was so weak and poorly executed that it ended up being a really bad movie that looked beautiful. And that's a shame, because it really did look beautiful. This was one of my favorite shots in the film, where the car accident happens and he's like slow motion walking toward the car upside down. It was just such a beautiful shot, and it's like wasted because the film was boring and the plot was bad and it was poorly written. It was just unfortunate. The plot. It was honestly weak even for a standalone. Like, you know, there's definitely, like I said, the whole conspiracy theory, the conspiracy runs deep trope is not new to Gotham. That is definitely a consistent story told in the world of Batman. It's just the whole motive was just unclear. It was unclear why the Riddler was doing this. It felt like it could have been any villain. They could have copied and pasted and stuck any villain in his place, and it wouldn't have changed much, because it was not overtly clear why this conspiracy meant so much to him as a character. You know, we did not understand. Remember I told you, like, a good villain is one we can understand, and we didn't understand him, right? I think the writer was just trying to do much. in general with the Riddler. I think he just stuck him in there. I really don't think that there was any real thought about why the Riddler himself should be carrying out this plot. And I think that's a shame. Give me a sec. Sorry, I just started like choking on my own spit. I think this movie would have been way better if they would have just cut the Riddler out. You know, in all honesty. It was just like inhaled my own spit. Wayne's coming to Jesus moment should have happened way sooner in the film. You know, like there's the moment at the end of the film when the flood is starting to take over Gotham Square Garden, and you see this shot right here where Bruce is shepherding the people out of the water. It was a really beautiful shot and a really beautiful moment, but the growth happened too late because up to this point, no growth whatsoever from Bruce. And that's not good. You can't have the titular character not have any arc whatsoever throughout the whole course of the film. Only till the end. You can't, because they had already losses at this point. So it's just not good storytelling. Let's talk about the future. And honestly, where this movie fits into the DCEU, I don't think it does. I think this is a one-off. I don't even see this Batman fitting in with our other Justice League characters. I wouldn't be surprised if they wrote this film off as to being its own like contained universe in the multiverse. Because I know they're about to do some multiverse shit with Flash. I wouldn't be surprised if they did that because quite frankly, this Batman doesn't feel mature enough to be in the Justice League. I feel like if he tried to show up to the Justice League, they leave his ass behind. They'd be like, sit down, little boy. We'll come get you next time, you know? Like given the tone, it feels like they were just going for a more gritty Batman, but it was a very young Batman to me, which is odd because usually gritty Batman is older Batman, mature Batman. We've seen that before. The mature older Batman is darker and gloomier, but he also has clout. He done some shit and he's seen some shit, you know? I feel like this Batman's never even met Superman. You know, so it's just I don't think this one. I think this is a one-off. I think as far as like franchises go, if this becomes a franchise, and I think it is. I think it was just announced today that they're going to make a Batman too. I think this is probably not going to get folded into the DCEU. Let's talk about Joker. Joker had a brief plug in the film. There was like a 5-minute long scene, which already overly long, where they were trying to inject the Joker, and it felt a little bit half-assed, honestly. It felt like, hey, okay, we need to somehow bring the Joker in here. How do we do it? Okay, let's have him talk to the fucking Riddler in the Arkham Asylum through their cells for 5 minutes and say crazy shit. Like, it just felt like forced bait for a sequel. And it was just cringy. I really don't envy Barry Keoghan. He's a really good actor too. Like this cast was fucking stacked, guys. Like they really had all the tools to make this a good movie, and it just failed them. It failed the actors. And I don't envy Barry Keoghan because quite frankly, ever since Heath Ledger, it feels like any Joker that departs from that is not going to be well received, you know? And as a result, we just get cookie cutter copy paste. Like, you know, Jared Leto, love him or hate him, guys, his Joker was different. I applaud him for doing something different. I liked his Joker because it was different. It was a different take. He was not trying to emulate Heath Ledger. He was trying to be his own Joker, and he fucking did it. So props to Jared fucking Leto. This Joker felt like it was trying too hard. It felt like he was like just trying too hard to be cringy. And if anything, it felt like a teaser for the makeup more than anything. And the makeup is supposed to be like super scary looking, which okay, fine, but it didn't need to be a 5-minute scene. Funny enough, they actually released a cut scene between Batman and Joker that I think was a better one. I think that would have been a better plug for Joker, a better cameo. I really wish they put that in there instead of this scene. I think this scene could have been cut and they could have put that in instead. It was basically while Bruce was trying to investigate the murders, he went to Joker saying, hey, there's a murder. I need you to look at this. And then the Joker was taunting him. I thought that would have been a way better like introduction to Joker. I don't know why they didn't do that. I don't know. The verdict. I wanted this movie to be good, guys. I know you guys heard me shit on this movie for the past 20 minutes, but believe me when I say I really wanted this movie to be good. I love superhero movies. And I love Batman. But I was so sorely disappointed, and it made me so damn sad. It saddens me to say I give this movie a 2 out of 10. I would have given it a 6 out of 10 if they would have cut the last hour off. But that last hour was kind of like the tip over the edge. This is a bad movie. The supporting actors' performances were not enough to save this totally misused villain. horribly directed Bruce Wayne and extremely weak handling of the plot and writing. So it saddens to say. I say go watch it anyway. Form your own opinion. This is just my opinion. But that is, we need to talk. All right, let's move into our last segment of popular culture. Anticipation. So this is the segment where I talk about the stuff that I'm most excited about for the next month. So starting with Multiverse of Madness. I'm so fucking excited about this fucking movie. Oh my God, I bought my ticket like 2 weeks ago. I'm gonna watch it at opening night. I'm gonna watch it at opening fucking night, guys. We might even do like a lightning episode of Did Y'all See That the next day just to fucking talk about it because I'm gonna want to talk about it. Oh my God, I'm so fucking excited about it. So I think I might do that. Yeah, God, I'm so stoked for this. Better Call Saul season 6. This actually season already started, but I am horribly behind in this show. So my goal for the next month is to binge through Better Call Saul and get through season 6. And who knows, if it's good enough, then it may be a topic for our next. Did y'all see that? We'll see. Evil Dead the game. So this is like a Dead by Daylight-esque game on Evil Dead, which I love those. If you guys know me, like we just got done talking about Evil Dead the musical. Like I love that fucking musical and I love those movies and I really want to play this game. I need people to play with those. So hey y'all, if anybody wants to play Evil Dead the game when it comes out, let me know. But yeah, Evil Dead the game. This is gonna be a good one. Obi-Wan Kenobi. So this is the next like Star Wars Disney Plus show, which is based on Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan Kenobi from the prequels. I actually plan on watching this, and I really hope that it's not a prerequisite that we have to like watch the other Star Wars Disney Plus shows like Mandalorian and The Bad Batch and The Book of Boba Fett, because I haven't seen any of them and I have no intention to. So I really hope that I don't need to see those to appreciate these. But yeah, I'm excited for this one. Stranger Things season 4. This is highly anticipated. Holy shit. This fucking, oh my God, I think season 3 came out in like 2018 or something. Like, I think the kids are supposed to be like fucking like 11 and 12, but the actors playing the kids are like 18 now. So how does that work? I don't even know, but it's gonna be good. I'm sure it's gonna be really good. I mean, maybe, who knows? For all we know, they filmed this 3 years ago. We didn't even know. But yeah, I'm very excited about this. Funny enough, this actually comes out after our next episode. So I mean, I'm not even gonna be able to see the episode before our next episode of Did Y'all See That? And then finally, Kendrick Lamar is finally releasing a new album, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, and it comes out May 13th. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a live stream where I'm listening to it, and I'll put the timestamps of what song I'm listening to, and I think I'm going to react live. I'm going to do a live reaction stream to the album. I think that'd be pretty cool because I love Kendrick Lamar. I went to his last album was Damn, and I went to that concert, and it rocked, and I'm so fucking excited to hear some new music on him. And that is anticipation. Thank you guys so much. That is part 1 of our podcast. When we come back, we will get going with some engaging conversation with 2 amazing people. So I'm going to go on a quick 5-minute break, and I hope you stick around for part 2 of our show. Let me take off spoiler alert, and yeah. All right, see you in a bit. Okay, folks, and we are back with the second part of our show. Talk Gozy to Me. Talk Gozy to Me. Talk Gozy to Me. Talk Gozy to Me. Okay, our first guest this evening is a flying rock omnipotent god VTuber who is a variety streamer that loves open world games, RPGs, and the occasional 2000s emo karaoke stream. Please join me, folks, in welcoming on Shale. Alrighty. Our second guest is a VTuber who is also a variety streamer with a chaotic yet comfy vibe, and he performs on stage IRL. Please join me in welcoming Bonito.
Hi, everybody.
Yes. All right, let's go ahead and kick off this segment with a little bit of interviewing. So I'll start with Shale. Tell us a little bit about your brand, Shale.
Okay, well, let's see. I've been streaming for a little over a year now. I started originally as just a small, like flying rock, pretty much just a head with wings. And then July of last year, I ascended into this new form But yeah, as you said, I'm a variety streamer, play tons of different games of all different genres. But more recently, I would say within the last like 4 or 5 months, I just became obsessed with open world survival craft games like 7 Days to Die, Grounded, Valheim, Subnautica, The Forest, pretty much like all of them. So,
Very
um,
nice.
but sometimes I do karaoke streams and very rarely do art streams. But I've had an art block for like almost a year now, and I need to get out of it. But uh, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
Very nice. Very nice. What makes you so passionate about the type of content you create?
Well, I honestly, I just love to entertain people. I remember when I was in grade school, I had a teacher tell me that I should be a radio host, and that kind of stuck with me throughout my whole life. And also, I love anime, so like being an actual anime character is like one of the coolest things ever. Um, Not to mention, being someone with ADHD, I have like a really hard time sticking to a hobby before giving it up, like not too long after I start. So,
Mm.
but like being a VTuber, I'm so determined. It's crazy. It's like nothing else.
Okay. I feel you on that ADHD. I feel like all good VTubers have ADHD, myself included.
Yeah.
What's some advice that you can give other smaller content creators just starting out?
First of all, turn off your damn viewer count.
Mm-hmm.
Staring at a number is just gonna mess with you. So turn it off and pretend like you're streaming to 100 people. Just like keep talking. Um, Also, like things take time, so don't expect to blow up immediately. Like I've been doing this for a long time, and I haven't blown up, and I'm fine with it. I mean, I have a good time, I have fun, and that's what it's all about. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. People don't blow up immediately, but it's super rare. And another thing would be like when you're just starting out, be really thrifty. There's so many different assets that are free out there that you can get, overlays, BGMs, all types of stuff, and like start as a PNG tuber too, because like you don't want to spend like a ton of money on a model that you might decide you don't like doing this. So um
Mm-hmm.
I would just recommend not spending a bunch of money right away.
That's good advice. Absolutely. If you suddenly hit it big and became just this huge streamer with seemingly unlimited resources, time, money, etc., how do you think that would change your brand?
Honestly, I think I'd like to do more to support the community and support smaller VTubers. I honestly love the community, and I see VTubers like larger VTubers like Iron Mouse do VTuber deep dive sometimes, and it helps to discover new VTubers. But I actually would like to do more for the community, like interviews, open collabs, ghost raids, stuff like that.
Very nice, very nice. I like that commitment to the community and making everybody uplifting each other.
Yeah.
Any upcoming projects you want to promote?
Well, I don't have much. I do have a model update that is still very, very early concept right now. So I don't really have much to share about it, but maybe be on the lookout later this year.
Okay.
And then also I've been toying with the idea of doing a fresh Elden Ring playthrough while drinking, where every time I die, I gender bend, voice changer and all, pretty much.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh,
Yep.
that sounds fun. Okay, thank you, Shale. Let's go ahead and move on to Bonito. Let's get a little interview going. Tell us about your brand.
Oh boy. Yes, my brand. I think I've described it before as like kind of comfy chaotic, where I don't know. It's. Do you want to hang out with your buddy on the couch while we play games? That's kind of what my streams are like. I'm just kind of there to make you laugh and have a good time and forget about what's going on in the world for a couple hours.
I like that. I like that a lot because I know definitely everybody could use a distraction from the world every now and then.
Hmm.
What makes you so passionate about that type of content of being that comforting, I guess, source for folks?
Yeah, so I've been doing comedy for over a decade live. I do improv. I've done some stand up. I didn't love it as much, but I've been doing improv for over a decade, and I've traveled um, uh, internationally for festivals and stuff. And the thing that I've always found is that like making people laugh to me is this sounds so like self-indulgent, but like making people laugh to me is like genuinely medicine in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
um and it is that thing of just like I said, when I do this, when I perform live, it's like you're coming to my theater, welcome to my house, and for the next 2 hours, I don't know what type of day you've had, or how bad it was or how good it was, but if it was bad, I hope that like for the next 2 hours and change, I can make you forget all of it, and maybe it's so good that you don't think about it for a couple hours after. And that's what I'm so passionate about, that because it's for me, that's a form of healing, and that's why it's important to me that like, uh, even though I'm in comedy, like being mindful of what my comedy is, and who my comedy targets, and punching up instead of punching down. Because the last thing I want to do is have someone have a bad day, or their day be worse after seeing me because I was insensitive via jokes or whatever.
Absolutely. It's good
Yeah.
that they have that introspection, like how your comedy affects your viewers. Like I feel like comedy in general, um, like the whole thing with Will Smith and his wife, and like
Mhm.
Chris Rock said a really fucked up joke about his wife, and like that happened. So it's like it's good to, not that somebody's gonna come up and slap you or
Yeah.
Not
choke you
yet.
in.
Hasn't happened yet, thankfully.
Sweet deal. What's the biggest takeaway that you want your viewers to have when consuming your content?
Just to be chill to each other. Whether I think especially in the small VTuber community, a lot of people in chat sometimes are also small VTubers, and we're all supporting each other. We're all passing like the same $20 around to each other in subs and stuff,
Yeah.
which I love. Um, but it's just to like, yeah, just be chill to each other. All of us are real humans behind our deal. Even though we're like Shale was saying, it's like it's cool to get to be an anime,
Yep.
but it's real people behind this, and they're not rungs in a ladder for your personal fame. They're not tools to be used to get more followers. They're people. So if you're not in this scene um, to make friends and have a good time and just like enjoy creating stuff with people, you shouldn't be in it maybe.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Okay. What's the coolest interaction that you've ever had in either in your content or social media presence?
The coolest interaction I've ever had. Um, Shoot, I'm trying to think of like if there's ever been a really cool time with um okay, I will say, so not in my VTubing experience, but IRL, I've gotten to work with Colin Mockery quite a few times. He's a big
Oh,
Canadian improviser. To the point where like now he'll like I'll get Facebook, like he'll post my Facebook wall on occasion. It's really weird, like in a good way.
that
But it's like,
rocks!
oh, hey, like happy birthday, and it's like, what is happening?
Oh my god,
um,
whose line is it anyway? That rocks.
yeah, so that's probably been one of the coolest things. But honestly, for me, it's always just like getting to just talk to people and then being like, hey, I had a bad day, or whatever else, and them not having a bad time during my stream. That's what I live for.
I love it. Oh, it's so wholesome. Okay. Any upcoming projects you want to promote?
Oh, I don't think so. I got some stuff on the horizon that I can't talk about, just from some changes to, I guess, um, me, but that's it.
Okay. All right. With that, let's go ahead and thank you so much, Shale and Bonito. Let's go ahead and go into our next segment, which is on that real shit, which is effectively what the talk show part is called. We are
Okay.
talking about cancel culture, folks. What is it? What is its place in society, and when does it go too far? So let's start with like what is cancel culture? You know, why do people get canceled? In my experience, it feels like cancel culture really got its footing as in its terminology with social media, right? When people get canceled on social media, but I think you can actually get canceled. You know, canceling has been around for a long time. Remember, like the Scarlet Letter. If you read that book when you were a kid, and that woman got branded a harlot, she got canceled. That's getting canceled too. So, what do y'all think, Shayla Benito, about like cancel culture? Like, what is it, and why do people get canceled?
Well, I generally think that, it's usually someone did something, I guess, questionable. Um, and then word gets out, you know, and, it spreads like fire. And pretty much after that, um, it can ruin someone's career completely.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Can I like I don't know if this is like jumping ahead, but can I just like talk about how it exists for um marginalized groups and no one in power
Okay.
basically. Like that's kind of my thing, is like cancel culture is, for me, it's like not a real thing. And as
Mm.
much as none of the people that complain about getting canceled actually ever get canceled,
Mm-hmm.
but the people that speak up against people using their power to be predators or abusive or whatnot, those are the people we tend to not hear from
Mm.
anymore after the fact. To
Hmm.
me, that's like the real, if there's a real part of cancel culture, is that.
That's a solid, yeah, yeah. That's a solid point, actually. Yeah, because you're right. Like that's actually a follow up question I did have for later. Like how effective is cancel culture? Like it doesn't feel permanent. It seems like whenever I see someone get canceled, usually I suppose for celebrities that's a little bit more sticky. Like Michael Jackson's legacy is pretty like tarnished because of all of
Mm.
that. Like even Kevin Spacey, like that's gonna follow him until he dies. But like when you see like young kids, I saw a video like last February of like some college kid saying a racist thing. I think she said the N word or something on in a video, and she got canceled. And the consequences she faced were, I think, her university she got accepted to rescinded her acceptance. Which okay, and then that's about the last I heard of it. Like 2 weeks later, we kind of never heard of it again. So it feels like cancel culture when you're not famous is not all that effective at all.
Hmm.
Hmm.
But if you are famous, it is sticky.
Yeah, it carries with you for sure.
Yeah. So that's why I wonder, like, what is the effective of it? Like, why, if it's so ineffective in general, what's its place in society? Is it just for celebrities? Is it not for people of influence? And as you mentioned, Bonito, like, what about the people that are like calling them out on the thing that they did? If that person that they're calling out is a famous person, like in the Me Too movement, like that got so much traction because all of these people were speaking up against
Hmm.
this one person, right? But if that one person spoke up against that one person, their career is the one that gets ruined, not the person that, not the abuser. It's the victim's career and livelihood that gets ruined. So like, let's talk about that.
Oh geez. Yeah, there's well, I guess, I mean, the first thing that came to mind is that, like, look at um actually two examples in recent award shows. Louis C.K. just won a Grammy for Best Comedy Album, who was a
Mm-hmm.
dude who was canceled, or at least society would say he was canceled, but obviously not. He just won that Grammy, and nothing about his new material is like apologetic. If anything, he's gone further into all of his jokes and punchlines are just minorities, which, the mask came off.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, people got upset when the mask came off. You mentioned Will Smith. Will Smith smacked Chris Rock, which we can have different opinions like about like if that was chill or not. But
Mm-hmm.
like, he's getting banned from the Academy for 10 years, and he's famous. But I feel like him being a black man plays into that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. That felt yeah harsh to me because I feel like there's plenty. It would be irresponsible for us as a society to not look at that situation and not think that race maybe played a part in his getting a pretty harsh, like a much harsher punishment than perhaps somebody that was not black or you know.
Yeah, I mean, look at Michael Jackson. Like, obviously, for good reason, his legacy is tarnished.
Right.
But like, society has said, okay, we can do that. Versus Roman Polanski, or
Mm-hmm.
someone else who, like, we largely, people just don't give a shit about it.
Exactly. I think Mick Jagger like dated
Hmm.
a 14-year-old. Like it's yeah. Which isn't, it's not good. It's definitely, it's none about thing about that is good. But I mean,
Yeah.
people haven't really canceled Mick Jagger. They still like his music, but Michael
Hmm.
Jackson, even and he's dead now, and he still like has this stuff following him into his grave. So,
Hmm.
what you saying, Shale?
But yeah, I actually wanted to bring up someone in particular who is, I thought they were canceled unfairly based on like basically a group of people that just didn't like him and they made up a story, because that happens too. Like sometimes stuff won't even be real and people get canceled for it. And the person I'm talking about is I don't know if you've heard of him before. His name is Dan Avidan. He is
Mm-hmm.
He's in the band Ninja Sex Party. He's also on the YouTube channel Game Grumps. And he was supposedly grooming some of his younger fans. And
Mm,
when everything came out, it turned out to be all made up. Like he ended up ghosting this girl, but she was of age when he started like courting her or whatever. Um, so it was still kind of a dick move what he did, but like the allegations was all brought up by just a group that just hates the Game Grumps and hates Dan for no reason. And
mm,
like if you know Dan like from the Game Grumps, yeah, his music is kind of, very sexual and stuff, but like he is a very kind, person, and he's like, like a sweetheart type person. And the allegations were just like way crazy, and like I was so upset when I heard about that. And then when the truth came out, it was, of course he didn't do that.
mm.
So
Yeah, that's actually a good another. That's actually a good another good segue. When it comes to what when does it go too far, right? The things that people get canceled for these days are like, for example, going through decade old tweets, like similar to the gentleman you just mentioned, like James Gunn got
Mhm.
canceled because he tweeted something that was anti-trans like 10 years ago. And he got fired from directing Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which he got rehired later, which yeah. Um, like, so is that like, it's like, is that okay? Like, is it or for another thing, if a company runs an ad that's unintentionally offensive, like there, I forget which clothing company it was, might have been Gap or something, but I saw an ad 10 years ago where they had like a little black kid with a monkey t-shirt on, and they didn't see why there was something wrong with that. Another thing, long-standing brands and media that have always been offensive but only are just now getting called out, like Aunt Jemima, the syrup. So like, what about those type of things? Like, when does it go too far?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's intention. Like a lot of the examples you brought up. Like for me, man, my Twitter 10 years ago was probably a complete mess because I was an idiot 10 years ago.
Mm,
Um, and I think that's why the cancel part of it is I think, or like in the naming itself is unfortunate, because I think people need to, not every case. I think some people do stuff that's horrendous enough where it's like, cool, you just need to not exist publicly in society. Like you don't
mm-hmm,
get that privilege anymore. You can exist privately and whatever,
mm-hmm,
but you don't need to be public anymore. Um, but I think there's things where it's like you have to give humans space to grow and resources to grow and resources to get better. Because if you don't do that, uh, they become isolated, and then the only people uh, that are gonna appeal to them or that are gonna say like, "Hey, I'm gonna stick up for you," are other shitbags.
mm-hmm.
And you should
yeah.
be able to like not be drawn in by that, but I'm also not going to expect someone to like emotionally bootstrap themselves out of being surrounded by awful people to get
Mm-hmm.
better from that pit. Like they still need a resource. That resource should never be the victims of those things,
Mm-hmm.
of
Hmm.
people that are affected by that stuff otherwise. But I think like if you have the emotional bandwidth to help people when they screw up, like it's a good thing to do if they are open and willing to it. If they're not open to it though, like then that's on them.
Yeah,
Right.
I agree.
Yeah, yeah, definitely the people that like double down. It's definitely like two types of people you see when they get canceled. The ones that like are quick to go into the notes app apology, and then there's the folks that the folks that double down and triple down, and I've even sometimes
Yeah,
quadruple down
yeah.
on the wrong thing. And I feel like so before I answer, like, why do y'all think that people do that? Why do you think people like double and triple instead of seeing things from other perspectives? Why do you think they just like gets it offensive when they get canceled?
I think they're just. I think it's born out of fear. Like they don't know what to do. A lot of the times, I just want to bring like the only thing that comes to mind really is I don't remember which VTuber it was recently, a bigger one. Was it like Bunny or whatever? That whole
Mhm.
situation like was just such a mess, and like I don't even know, like because it was just so bizarre that you try to like after it had came out, that you try to like deny it when there was all this proof and everything, and then you have to like bring your own proof to show that, it's just stupid to me. Like if you get caught with something and you did it, fess up. It's only gonna make things worse if you try to keep doubling down and everything.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's harder for me to understand when you're not famous because I'm just like, uh, then for me, it's like, yeah, fear definitely, Shale. That's like a great thing to bring up. And ego, which to me,
Yeah.
ego is a product of fear, right? Ego
Hmm.
is the fear of being wrong.
Yeah.
Because if you admit that you're wrong about one thing, then your entire reality that you've built is potentially also wrong, and then your reality crumbles. And like that's where like cognitive dissonance comes in, and why people double down on stuff, right?
Yeah.
Um, Whereas if you're famous, you're surrounded by people that like their entire job is to make you comfortable and to make
Mm-hmm.
you like if you've ever been on like a set for like a movie or a TV show, if you're talent, if you're an actor, everyone is just there to make sure that you're in the best mindset to do what you need to do in front of the camera,
Mm.
no matter what. Like everyone's juicing you up constantly, and it's weird. It's super weird, but people get used to that. People get really used to that and used to that treatment. And so like it's it's awful, but I understand why people do double down because at a point I think that absolutely gives you brainworms. And you like
Mm-hmm.
there's no you can't be wrong, right? And
Yep.
that's why like I mentioned Louis C.K. earlier. Like his comedy has always been offensive, but there is a layer of like self awareness or a layer of like, I know I'm being the asshole, or this offensive thing I'm saying is in service to a commentary about how messed up this thing is. That used to be his shtick. And I was looking at some of the material from his new album, and there's none of that anymore. It's just like, here are some jokes where the punchline is literally just racism or literally
Mm.
just a slur. Like there's no anything to it. And again, that's the thing. It's like that's someone that just doubled down on. Well, I got a new audience now, I guess. So time to appeal to them.
Ouch.
Oh.
Okay. So let's move into like what its place in society is. Who is right? I feel like cancel culture tends to be associated with liberal people more, but I see conservative people canceling people all the time. I don't watch a lot of Fox News, but the clips I do see, they cancel shit all the time. So it's like, who is right? Like, who has the authority to cancel? If it's, is it all just arbitrary? Like, just depends on who the group is? Like, who is right in society?
I mean, I guess it kind of depends on the situation. Like i- in all, like, the overall picture of everything. Um, like some people obviously deserve, like, depending on the nature of what happened, they super deserve it, especially if it's something that they're proud of, or that they feel like they didn't do anything wrong. Um, and it was like something really bad, then yes, of course, I feel like that person definitely needs to be canceled. But sometimes it feels like the whole situation with Dan that I was talking about was just people didn't like him, so they wanted to make something up, and I felt like that's going too far. If you're trying to like actually make stuff up that isn't true, just because you don't like somebody, then that's too far of an extreme.
Hmm.
Yeah, like as far as like yeah, who's right? Um, it's interesting because I think part of why I think it gets so popular, or like the idea of cancel culture gets popular, is because people want to be righteous. Like you want to
Mm.
feel righteous in your actions. You want to feel like you're standing up and sticking up for people. Um, and I think I see a lot of this in younger people when things are much more black and white because like emotionally you're more passionate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I just see like a lot of it. I see a lot of it in the VTuber community too, in the indie VTuber community, where it's
Mm-hmm.
like I think the intention is good, but sometimes it's like, oh, like this is just to you just are doing this to feel right or righteous yourself or to get internet points.
Hmm.
Um
Mm-hmm.
and not like and like dogpile because it feels you want that serotonin hit, right? Versus like what are we doing to actually like make this situation better for the victims, and if there's a path for rehabilitation for the offender, if that. And when I say offender, like I want to be really clear, like some shit's illegal, and
Mm-hmm.
that's like
Yeah.
a different
Yep.
category, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Versus like like with the Dan Avidan thing, I remember when that happened, and I was just like, oh, okay. Like once it got cleared up, and like even the person who brought it up said like, oh, this is not actually how it went down. Um, like it sounded like he was kind of engaging in kind of like shitty dude behavior, but
Hmm.
Yep.
nothing that's not like a thing that you tell your dude friend, like, yo, you should maybe not do that. You're being an
Yep.
asshole.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I think, and I don't think it's, I'm a like radical leftist. And I don't think it's like a purely, like you said on Fox News, like they cancel everything. There's
Hmm.
actually, it's really funny. Cawthorn, who is is he senator or congressperson, who's young. The GOP doesn't cancel anyone for anything, but the scandal right now is like some photos of him at some like cocaine fueled orgy thing, and because it plays into weird aspects of the GOP and toxic masculinity and queerness and other things,
Hmm.
they are out for him. Like,
Oh.
yeah, they are like infighting like to get him gone, because I think it goes against some of like their internal values, versus someone else in the GOP will like do something far worse
Oh
than
yeah.
like a cocaine party, and no one says shit, right? So
Hmm.
yeah, I think it's a bludgeon that people use to get rid of people they don't like and feel better about themselves frequently.
Yep.
Do y'all think that clout? Because you mentioned with the VTuber community, I see it a lot
Hmm.
when it really does snowball. It really starts with like a VTuber Twitter when somebody posts something that's kind of appalling, and people like and retweet it. Then like a day or two later, you start seeing everybody say their 2 cents on it, and this person says, "Oh, I did this," and then it starts feeling like clout chasing a little bit to me,
Yep.
like people just hopping on it just to be like, "I'm on the right side of this." What do you guys think about
Yep.
that? The clout aspect of it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It sometimes, it can seem like that, or people do that. Um, I mean, especially if it's something from like a big, VTuber, then it seems like everybody's got to put their 2 cents in. And some stuff, seems like, yeah, that's a good point and all, but like when it seems like copy pasted, or if it seems like not really genuine, then you're like, I think this person's just cloud chasing.
Hmm.
And you see, I mean, it's unfortunate in the indie VTuber community. There's, I mean, probably right now like two Twitlongers or like a week, um,
Hmm.
that
Yep.
are or Google Docs that are like big call outs. This is gonna be probably the most. This might be the most controversial thing I say. For me, that's like, um, yes, if people pose a threat to people or pose a harm to people, like we should let the community know so that other people don't get hurt. I do see some shit sometimes where I'm just like, this, y'all could have talked about this. I don't need to see this.
Mm.
Like, y'all
Privately.
could have talked to, and not just from a like, I don't need to see this. Like, for people that are victims of similar things, or for people that are easily triggered by that shit, it's like it's all over the timeline. Um,
Hmm.
so sometimes I see that stuff, and I'm just like, I'm not saying like don't speak up and don't try to protect people, because speaking up is how we protect each other in communities like this, especially when there are people that are abusing the anonymity of like that comes along with VTubing. Um, but yeah, sometimes it just feels like this could have been a thing I didn't need to see, or like we all, not all of us have to like dogpile on this to try to get some likes, you
Yeah.
Yeah.
know. And I don't think people, I hope people aren't doing that stuff with that in mind, but I do think subconsciously there is a little, like I said, you want to feel righteous, you want to feel whatever, to the point where like I feel weird if I speak up about a thing, or if I like talk about a thing that is tweet about a thing like that, because I don't know, man. That's also the guys that are really vocal about that stuff are usually the next person in the next twit longer. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Ooh,
So
yeah.
like it makes me feel, I'm like, like I just don't want to give that vibe.
Yeah.
I kind of feel the same way. Like I don't want to like insert myself. Like, cause sometimes there'll be times where I like want to reply and I'll be like halfway through the tweet, but then I'll be like, no, backspace, 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 backspace. No, we're not
I've
sitting.
done the same thing. I do the same shit.
Absolutely. All right. Finally, is cancel culture healthy? Is it healthy? If it's not healthy, what are other ways that we can hold people accountable for their actions? Especially in the public face, both on the large scale with celebrities and people with a lot of influence, and even smaller on the smaller scale, smaller people. What do you think?
I honestly don't know.
Mm.
I don't know what you could do to like improve it or change it or to make it any better. Um, I feel like it does have a place, and sometimes it's executed properly, and sometimes it's not, and you just don't know how it's gonna go. But I feel like people, need to get all the facts straight before they, go pointing fingers and everything. I feel like there needs to be some sort of like system, but I mean, it's impossible. Um, but I mean, I feel like people should just like get the whole story straight before pointing fingers and get all everything, because a lot of people they won't even read like the entire tweet longer or whatever. They'll just see the tweet and they'll be like, oh yeah, let's go, and that's kind of how it snowballs a lot of times, and people don't even know the full story.
Yeah, I think it's to me it's just thinking about what does your contribution do? Like,
Mm.
does it benefit the community or the situation in any way? Like, I know we love to dunk on people on twitter.com. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
get it. I like it. The stereotype, like, we all enjoy it. If someone's acting like an idiot, it can feel really good to be like you're acting like an idiot. Um, but but when it comes to this stuff, especially trying to like keep the victims in mind, or the people that have dealt with this stuff, like, does this benefit them? Does your
Mm.
action benefit them? Does it help them? And if not, maybe pull back. Like,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you don't need to hop into the conversation, maybe you don't need to do the thing. I think um, platforming those voices is a great way to do it. Like, especially if you have a larger following, so that more people get eyes on it, so that more people are aware, um, or more people can educate themselves. Um, but like, maybe you don't need to have your like hilarious GIF reply. I said GIF for the
Mm-hmm.
first time in my life. GIF, good lord. A different controversial topic. um, but yeah, and I just think it's a matter of like, you gotta, like I said before, even even in these cases, think about what's best for the victims. And for me, part of that is like, if there is a path to rehabilitation for the people that did these things, it has to be there for them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I had an acquaintance up in Canada who was a performer who I knew for a long time, like a mentor, who was like really cool, and then it came out that he was like a serial sexual harasser.
Mm.
And this is during the Me Too stuff that had happened, and we were all just like taken aback by it. And one of his best friends, I was like, "Hey, how you holding up? Because this is your guy." And he was like, "Well, I just told him I don't condone anything he did. Obviously, he screwed up, but I'm here to talk if he wants to get better."
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and he was there to talk to him, but then the dude just he doubled down. They would have conversations, and at some point it would be like, "Well, these women ruined my career," and blah blah blah. And at a point, he had to be like, "All right, man, you don't want to get better, so I can't be here for you anymore. If you change
Mm-hmm.
your mind on that, you can let me know. But until then, you know, we don't have a relationship anymore." And I think we need to see more of that from people that have the emotional bandwidth to do it, because otherwise, it's going to be hard for people to grow and get better.
Yeah.
Interesting you mentioned that. So, do you feel like people that still enjoy Kevin Spacey's movies and still enjoy R. Kelly's music and stuff, like that's actively perpetuating the bad behavior? Like it's kind of counteracting against the accountability, you think?
I mean, I think you can be clear about your ethics when engaging with like the work, right? I'm never going to give J.K. Rowling money again,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I also understand, like, I have friends who Harry Potter was like integral to their childhoods, and like their
Mm-hmm.
relationships with their parents even. So I can't like judge them for consuming that content. I'm just like, steal from J.K. Rowling if you can.
Yeah.
We're just
Totally understand.
ethically dubious as well, I guess, but I think in the right way. And then
Yeah.
yeah, you mentioned like Kevin Spacey, and like, or I think like Woody Allen comes to mind too as another like a big comedic actor. And I'm like, you can engage with problematic content, and you can engage with problematic things made by like problematic or even just straight up shitty people, as long as you're aware. And I think that you're not like propagating it. Like, I'm not going to be like, "Yo, you should go watch this Woody Allen movie," but if I want to watch that movie and be fully aware that he's a piece of shit, I think that's okay.
Solid point. Do you think that some of the responsibility falls on like the people that make that content. So like Woody Allen or even Blazing Saddles, Mel Brooks
Mhm.
movie that was like a totally and very offensive, but it was a satire. Do you think it's the studio that created that movie and continues to distribute that movie? It's their responsibility to say, "Hey, put a content warning on this," you know? Do you think that responsibility just really falls on the people that produce those to acknowledge that it isn't okay? Like, I guess the root of my question is the stuff that's like historically bad that is
Hmm.
considered not, I guess, PC today. You know,
Mhm.
is it where does that responsibility lie?
I think it depends, but like the one thing I see, and I was actually thinking about this earlier, is when you were talking about brands, is like Disney.
Mm,
I go back and watch a lot of old Disney cartoon movies because that's kind of like the thing I'm into. But I go back and I watch them on Disney Plus, and there'll be content warnings.
Hmm.
Like back then, things. This is just how things were, or whatever. But like, it's not okay today, and it wasn't okay then. But we're just warning you about this before the movie starts, and I think that's cool. Um, but I mean, I don't feel like it should always be the job of like the overall like creation, like when it comes to music, like the record company or whatever, um to post that, especially if it's something that's become like common knowledge.
mm,
Yeah, I think it's actually, for me, I think it's like actively not a good thing to erase that stuff, because then how do we? I think it's important to learn from it and to see it
Hmm.
exist. So yeah, the thing you mentioned with Disney, a lot of Looney Tunes cartoons do the same thing, because there's a lot of them from some of the older eras that are like, oh hey, this is like racist caricature or blackface, or like there is shit during like World War II that was really wild.
mm-hmm.
Um, and it's like giving those warnings off the top to say like, hey, here's the context of when this was made and what was going on. We're not like, nothing that's happening here is good. Like, let's
Mm-hmm.
make that clear. But
Hmm.
this is the context for it, because the world was different. And then you can look at that and go like, oh yeah, like I think it can be good to experience that stuff in the context so that you get a greater understanding of it. Because that's what, like, people need to feel what's wrong sometimes.
Yeah.
Like that's how kids learn. Like, you have to like feel wrongness, not just read wrongness on
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
occasion.
Yep.
um and that's important to it. I think that's, I want to say like, yeah, that's really important to it. So I think that stuff should still exist. Just give it context.
Absolutely. Yeah, interesting you should mention that because you're right. Like there's like definitely efforts in some parts of the United States where like they want to like whitewash parts of history that they deem undesirable. And that's kind of the
Hmm.
same kind of idea. Like we don't want to do that, so we should definitely shouldn't, you know, delete Breakfast at Tiffany's and Rush
Hmm.
Hour and Animal House and all these movies that were offensive. Like they definitely, but we should acknowledge like as we watch them today, we can laugh at the jokes, but just acknowledge that is not a good joke. And it's
Yeah.
honestly, we should have acknowledged it back then, back when it was in the heyday when that was like considered okay. Like we should have
Yep.
acknowledged then, like, no, it's not okay. But yeah.
And like, that's for me as a comedian, that's a big, like, I truly believe anything can be joked about and anything can be talked about.
Mm,
Like, that is a belief I have as a comedian. But like, it's how you do it that's important. And what, like I said, what your target is, right? You should be speaking truth to power. You should be making sure that you're punching up and not down. um, and you can make a funny joke, I think, about anything, but it takes a deft hand that most people don't have. And to be honest, like, most of these like white dude comedians are too lazy to spend the time on figuring out.
mm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's all I got. Any last remarks on cancel culture? Okay, sweet deal.
I was like, I think that's pretty much it for
I
me.
think we
So,
got it. Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of hit all the pieces here. I'll go ahead and transition to the question and answer phase. Let's see if there's any questions. Let me just get that open over here. Q&A, questions asked. Looks like we Have no questions. All right, sweet deal. In that case, thank you so much again, Shale and Bonita, for coming on to the show tonight. This is a really good conversation. Like, cancel
Yeah.
culture is a fascinating topic. It's very complex, and
Mhm.
yeah, thank you so much. Thank you,
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
audience.
thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you, audience, for tuning in as well. This episode will be live on all major podcast platforms on Friday morning. My name is Ngozi Mai, and audience, give a virtual round of applause for our two guests here, Shale and Bonito. And this has been Did Y'all See That? I hope to see y'all next time. All right, y'all. Bye.